there, beautiful people. You're listening to Cast a Ripple by Carla Berger from Cape Town, South Africa. Hello friends, and welcome to a new episode of Cast a Ripple. Cast a Ripple and Be a Ripple is a space where I like to share what I like to call life-enhancing tools that absolutely anybody can use to better improve the quality of their day-to-day experiences. Today, I want to talk to you about shadow work. Now, shadow work, the word shadow, is a bit eerie, right? People kind of get frightened when you mention shadows because it's darkness and it's the unknown and it's not positive. Sometimes it can be very depressing and deep. And let's face it, people don't want to talk about those things. People want upbeat, they want positivity, they want laughter, they want gratitude, they want all of the beautiful and pretty things in life. They don't want the dark and dusty and depressing things in life, right? But the reality of this realm and this life that we're living is duality. That means both light and dark. So there's this misconception, and some spiritual practices are based on this misconception, that spirituality is light and love and positivity, right? It's all of the good things. It's focusing to be grateful. It's focusing on being positive. It's light, focusing on light. But those spiritual practices miss the point of duality. Those spiritual practices are lacking in the fact that it doesn't consider our reality. It doesn't consider that there needs to be darkness to be light. There needs to be light to be darkness. It's yin and yang. It's part of the package is shadow, is those parts of self and those parts of the world that we don't want to see, that we don't want there. So shadow work is looking into oneself deeply, into yourself, asking questions about the things that you think and the things that you do, observing what comes up from asking those questions, and not judging whatever it is that comes up. Shadow work is going into those subconscious parts of ourselves that we have suppressed, that we have bulldozed, and bringing them to light, making them conscious, to accept them, to understand them, to allow them. And a lot of the times that means integration. That means moving towards more authenticity. That is moving away from less pain. But unfortunately, before you can get to a space where you are more integrated, you are more authentic, and you are experiencing less pain, less heartache, less confusion, you need to go into the pain. You need to go into the shadows. And that scares the hell out of a lot of people. And I understand that completely, because those spaces can be really depressing. They can be really heavy. But it's a necessary thing to be able to do and to talk about in order for us to be more authentic. So if someone keeps telling you just to be positive the whole time, they are avoiding their own shadows. They are avoiding those deeper parts. They're trying to suppress those things. Shadow work is more authentic, in my opinion. In my opinion, being able to ask the hard questions, ask the deep, dark and nasty things is more authentic than just focusing on light, love, and the beautiful things. Okay, so I'm going to go into why, now that we know what shadow work is, I want to go into why it is that we do have shadows. So besides the fact that this reality that we're living in is composed of light and dark, there are reasons why we ourselves as individual beings have shadows. We have shadows because when we were very little, for instance, let's take an example, you were put in a position or a few positions where you felt like you had to submit, you had to be compliant, you had to be complacent in order to survive. Say, for instance, friends or family or someone kept on asking you to do things that they had to do, and you felt like you had to do that in order to be accepted, in order to be loved, right? So you then take on this submissive personality, let's say, this submissive trait, and you adopt that throughout your entire life, because when you were younger, this is what was taught to you, this is what you learned, this is how you adapted to your life, to your situation, in order to fit in order to survive. But the problem with that is, when you do that, and all of us does this, I mean, no one is exempted. This is a process of experiencing self that we all go through, but we now need to go back to our more authentic self. When you are a little child and you choose to be submissive, you also choose not to be confident, not to be dominant, not to be expressive. You choose to be shy. You choose to be just there, not speaking your confidence, speaking your truth. Right? Sound familiar? So when you chose to be more submissive, you bulldozed your confidence. You bulldozed a part of you that actually wanted to stand up for yourself. You completely suppressed a part of your authentic self. And that part of you is probably still suppressed. And that part of you that's suppressed is, and there's not just that part of you. Trust me, there are so many layers of yourself that you have suppressed throughout the years, that you have locked away in a deep dark place somewhere, your subconscious, because you thought and you were taught and you were conditioned to think that those pieces of you are not necessary, are not welcome in this world. But let me tell you, all of you is welcome. All of you is necessary in order to be balanced, in order to be a fulfilled and a more put together human being. You need all of those pieces. You can't just be a half puzzle. You need all of your little pieces. They all play a role. So shadow work is us going into that subconscious state, understanding where in our childhood or where in even previous lives, if you want to go that deep, those parts were locked up, and why, and unlocking them and bringing them into the light. Understanding the way we think, understanding the things that we do. I gave this example on one of my posts, inspirational posts, I think it was last week Monday, about shadow work. And an example from my life is that I've always been a people pleaser. I've always put people in front of myself, in front of my own needs, sometimes at the expense of myself. I allow people to walk over me because I want to put their needs first. But that is many of the times over my needs, completely ignoring my boundaries of what I feel is okay and what's not okay, and what I need and what I don't need, right? So at a point in my life, I had to start asking myself the question, why? And that's where it starts. Where you continuously get into a position where you are unbalanced and unhappy and unsatisfied, and you start to ask yourself questions. You start to ask yourself the question, why? Why am I feeling this way? Why am I continuously putting myself in these positions? Why am I attracting these people into my lives, or these scenarios into my lives? When you start asking those questions, things start to come up. For me, that whole process led me to discovering that sometimes I don't feel good about myself, and I tend to put other people first for some sort of external validation. I want to please them, and when I please them and they show gratitude, then I feel better about myself. But what's the problem with this? The problem with this is that they don't always show gratitude. People just kind of walk all over you, and they don't even look back to see if you're okay. They can be so self-involved that they don't show gratitude. And then I feel even worse about myself than I did. So it's this horrible spiral you put yourself through, where the solution to this, and I've started to practice this, is being more selfish. And that sounds horrible because selfish has such a negative connotation to it. But being selfish is actually selfless. That's a deeper concept to maybe unpack at a later stage, because that's a whole podcast on its own. Selfish being selfless. But for me, being more selfish in my actions and in my emotions and in my thoughts, I give myself love. I give myself sustenance. I pour myself into myself. I pour energy into myself. I become loving and fulfilled in myself, which means that I don't need that external validation. Now, this doesn't mean that I don't take other people into account at all. It just means that when I then do put other people in front of myself, I do it out of unconditional love, not out of need, not out of a space where I need their gratitude. I need them to feel pleased about me so that I can feel better. But I can do it because I am overflowing with love, with unconditional love. Like, I don't even care if they show gratitude or not. I am going to help them and put them before me for that once or twice. But that also needs to be in a space where I then know it's unconditional love, where I take a moment to reflect internally and understand why it is that I'm thinking, or why it is that I'm doing these things. So it's a continuous process. You don't clear the shadow once and then just stop thinking about it. It's bringing awareness into that shadow and constantly inviting the shadow into your life. So there's this important thing that Divine Gaia, you can go check her out on YouTube. You can go, I don't know if that video of hers is actually on YouTube. It was on Instagram. Anyway, she said that sometimes we get so involved with going into the shadow that we become the shadow. We reinforce the shadow with our energy. And that's also not what we want. We don't want to go in there and just become the shadow, become this depression, become this heaviness. What we want to do is we want to take our light to the shadow. We want to actually bring the shadow up into our light, because our light is big enough and bright enough to allow the shadow to be there and not be taken over by the shadow. So just be mindful of that. I'm not saying become the shadow. I'm just saying be aware of the shadow. Understand the shadow. Don't judge the shadow. Don't become the shadow. Not what we want. And if you do become the shadow, it's okay. Just practice awareness around that. I mean, I've also, at stages, been the shadow. not a nice place to be, but you are in control and you are powerful enough to pull yourself out of that. Okay, so this is also in alignment with, I need to just also say, Mark Manson, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. His book, he writes about the self-awareness onion. And that's mostly the same. It's like, he describes that our self-awareness is like an onion and it has layers. So you go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper until you get to the actual value of why you're doing the things that you do. And that's basically the same as doing shadow work, going deeper, understanding why it is that we do the things that we do. Because there's almost always a reason, and a very deeper reason, for the reason or for why we do the things that we do. We like to say like, I'm, that's just the way I am. It's not really. There's a lot of deeper layers there. You aren't just the way you are because you are the way you are. You are the way you are because of the people and because of the circumstances and because of the location you grew up in, and there are so many factors. And we just need to be aware of them and be aware of that subconscious entities that we've been forming, that we've been bulldozing. On that, you can go check out Teal Swan's video on bulldozing, very informative. I would also recommend watching anything on fragmentation that she has. So go check her out, check out bulldozing to understand more about this concept of us suppressing pieces of ourselves that we thought weren't valuable, but actually are. So why do we want to go into the shadows? It's so much easier just to, la-di-diet, just flow on the positive side, just think about light and love all the time. We want to do this. We want to go into the shadows and bring them to light so that we can be more authentic, so that we can be more integrated, so that we can be more whole as a human being. Like I said, we are this puzzle, and there are puzzle pieces missing because we've put them, under the couch because we thought they weren't necessary. But for them, or for us to be more complete, to paint this picture of us, of our authentic self, we need those puzzle pieces. We need to go fetch them and bring them back, understand them, and understand where they fit into our bigger picture. So that's why we need to deprogram all of that stuff that happened to us. We need to understand them. And we were just kids. Most of these things are just, they happened to us while we were kids. We weren't even aware of the things that we've been hiding under the couch. Okay, my loves, that is it for today. I think it's a very valuable podcast, this one, and I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, let me know what you think. Please follow me on this channel. Please follow me on Instagram, b_a_ripple, and check out the website, my website, for links to all of my content. I love you guys, and I'll speak to you guys again in a week's time. Oh, my love. Bye.